y'all, what's up? It's those wrestling girls. It's your girl, Krista B.
And Queen PR.
And we are here to let you know to tune into Old Face Wrestling because they're one of the best podcasts out. And we follow them, so you should too. So subscribe, hit that button, and listen for the latest in wrestling news. Later.
Hey, this is Sofia Lopez from Women of Wrestling, and you are watching Old Face Wrestling.
That's right. Oh, Face Wrestling. Listen to the podcast. Listen. They are Dark Side approved. Outlet approves it. Oh, Face Wrestling. I'll be listening. Will you?
Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today on O Face Wrestling. This is your host JT, and today I'm joined by Jungle Grrrl from Women of Wrestling.
What's happening?
So Jungle Grrrl, thank you so much for joining us today on the show.
Thanks for having me.
No problem at all. So just got a few questions for you. First question, how did you get into wrestling?
So, approximately 20 years ago, there was an advertisement. There was a call out for a tryout, but it wasn't very specific as to the fact that it was wrestling. They were talking about athletic women for a superhero show. So I went to the tryout, and turns out it was wrestling, which I had always been a huge fan of. At the time, I had a friend that was wrestling with WWE, and he's like, Erica, you got to do this. This is, it's right up your alley. So I wasn't convinced until I went to the training. So after the tryout, they asked me to come on board, went to the first practice, and it was amazing. And he was absolutely right. It was right up my alley. So it just embraced and combined all the things that I'd ever loved, which I loved wrestling, but I didn't love women in wrestling at the time because they were mostly valets and just kind of a sideshow. And so I wasn't really interested in being a sideshow. Like, to me, I thought I was the show. So when David had put together the Women of Wrestling, and I realized that there was an opportunity to be something just a sideshow, I was 100% in.
Okay. So you've been doing this for 20 years, you said?
Yes.
Wow. How was the beginning process of, becoming a wrestler? Like, was it really, tough transitioning and learning, the techniques and all that?
It was very hard. So it's, you have this idea and this concept of what you think it's all about. But when you go through the training, everything from learning how to bump and just understanding the psychology behind wrestling. And I mean, just running the ropes themselves. I had bruises on my hips and my back and my arms for, I would say, the first 2 months solid. And it was a lot more physically demanding than I had anticipated it being. And it really, you can be as physically fit as you think you might be, but physically in ring shape is very, very different. And it was humbling. It was a great experience. And it was truly, truly those first several months of learning and getting acclimated to being in the ring were incredibly humbling for me.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like boot camp in a way, but a lot of people, that aren't wrestling fans don't really understand how rough it is to be a wrestler. Like, in my opinion, it's, more tough than being like a football player or something like that because all the training you put in. Like, I know a lot of wrestlers are out there 4, 5, 6, even 8 times a week training and taking all those bumps. Like, people will sit there and criticize and say, oh, well, wrestling's fake. No, like, you're really taking bumps. You're really getting slammed and jumping, from the turnbuckle to, it is a toll on the body. And, like, I personally just admire all the wrestlers and appreciate them just for going out and, putting their bodies on the line like that. Like, it's not an easy thing to go through.
No, and it really is one of those things until you know, you really don't know. And it's I can equate it to, I thought parenting was a lot different until I became a parent. And you don't know until you know. And wrestling was one of those things. Like, I thought I was in tip-top shape, and I thought I was badass. But my hat's off to all of the men and women over the years, because it is not an easy job. I mean, it truly is not.
No, it's not. And just from I don't know if you've ever seen it, but the movie Fighting with My Family with Paige, like
Yes.
seeing what they were going through. Like she was a really good wrestler, and just she could barely handle it at first. And even a lot of those like really professionally athletically trained people, a lot of them were quitting because it is such a toll on the body. Like I said, the training and all those bumps, like it's crazy. Like no one thinks about all that kind of stuff that you all have to go through.
And then even being fine-tuned and being trained, there's still so many things that can go wrong. So not only are you trying to train for worst case scenario, but sometimes worst case scenario happens, and it's, things happen. I've had several different surgeries over the years, and I've had multiple different injuries, and, things do go wrong.
Like, how do you keep up with your health? 'Cause I know you said you've been doing this for 20 years. Like, how do you maintain, your health and all that, and being in shape?
I stay ready. I own a gym, which makes it a little bit easier. So I've been doing a kind of hit hybrid cross training style for the last 25 years. And it's that too is humbling. So people who have never done it before that come in and do it, it's a humbling experience for them. But so I do a lot of cardio strength combinations, but there's still, I mean, you have to stay ring ready because there is a, kind of being primed for being in the ring. So the bumps, and if you don't take bumps for a period of time and you suddenly take them, you feel them, even if you've, done it a million times before. It's not like riding a bike. I mean, a lot of the things come back to you, but it's really something that you have to keep up constantly. Otherwise, it gets more challenging, especially the older you get.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense because I know like some wrestlers, everyone's different. Like some wrestlers, they just after so many years, you could just tell, you could just see the wear and tear of them and how they
Yeah.
go in the ring. And other wrestlers, like I'm going to use Chris Jericho as an example, still can go with the best of
Yeah.
them. Like everyone's different, and like you said, it just depends on how you maintain your health and keep it in shape
And,
over the years.
and in addition to that, I think it depends to what kind of wrestler you are. So obviously, there are some wrestlers that are far more um, aggressive and high flying, and the moves are different. And it depends too if you're the one receiving or giving a lot of the big power moves. So someone like a beast is probably going to have a lot longer shelf life than somebody like a Steffi Slays, who is always on the receiving end, and Beast is always on the giving end. So her body will probably hold up a lot longer because she's not bumping as much.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I'm glad that you brought that up because that makes a lot of sense too,
Yeah,
right there.
it's very different when you are the one constantly bumping and feeding and doing all of that versus someone who is um, a big kind of powerhouse, and there's not a lot of people that are going to be able to throw them around in the ring. So there is certainly an advantage to being a beast, and a disadvantage as well, but
Exactly.
a lot of advantages.
Yeah, it definitely makes a lot of sense. So, next question I have for you, how did you come up with the Jungle Girl name?
So Jungle Grrrl was a collaborative effort with David McLean and Selena Majors. So my family, my mother's from Colombia, South America. And when we first started training, just my kind of natural instinct was to climb the turnbuckles and to be kind of high flying. That's just naturally what I gravitated towards. So taking that background and marrying it with what came natural to me in the ring is how we came about with the Jungle Grrrl character.
Okay, yeah, I really like
Which was,
that name.
and I like to growl a lot.
So is that why you have it spelled Grrrl?
Yeah.
Okay, that
Well,
makes
Jungle
sense too.
Grrrl is just kind of boring. But Jungle Grrrl.
I know you add a little spice to it. I love
Yeah.
that. All right. And do you have any future goals in the wrestling business?
Yeah, to get my belt back.
The belt you're back.
That's my goal right now. So as your listeners and those that are watching know that I lost Tessa Blanchard 2 weeks ago, which was devastating, but a hell of a match, incredibly athletic. My hat's off to her because she did win clean, and it was a battle. And I'm looking forward to getting back in the ring with her, and her being on the receiving end of the 1, 2, 3.
And now it's your time to get that W and get your belt back.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people are after her right now, but I know her attorney or manager, Sophia Lopez, is trying to help her avoid, that happening right now.
Yeah. I've never had anybody helping me out, never needed anybody. So I I believe I can get the job done by myself. And you fall down, but you pick yourself back up and you get back in it. And certainly not going to lay down and say, oh, well, I got beat. That's it. No, I want the belt. I want that championship.
That's what you gotta do. Get right back up and go after it and win it back.
100%.
All right. Well, that wraps up our interview. I got all my questions out. So thank you so much again, Jungle Grrrl, for joining us today on
Absolutely.
Wrestling.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Make sure everybody's tuning in Saturday nights, and we have our season finale, 2 hours. So they're running WoW Superheroes all day on Saturday, and then a 2-hour finale at 8 p.m. Eastern time.
I'll definitely be watching that.
I hope so.
Yeah, I'm definitely.
It's going to be epic. And you can follow at WoW Superheroes, and then you can find all of the other wrestlers on there as well.
Yep, you hear that, folks. Make sure you follow WoW Wrestling on Facebook, Twitter, all of that, and make sure you look for all the superstars there too, and follow them
At
as well.
WoW Superheroes.
At WoW Superheroes.
Yep.
And also make sure you follow us at O-Face Wrestling on Twitter and Facebook as well. And thank you all for tuning in to us. And thank you again, Jungle Grrrl, for joining us.
Thanks. It was awesome. I appreciate it.
No problem.